individuals and other individuals. I am Dawn of Caricatures by Dawn, and this is Caricatures by Dawn. In one of my previous videos, I talked about the definition of the word caricature. If you want to see that video, click, I think it's going to be up here, I think. Wherever on the screen you see a thing saying to click there if you want to see that video. Having already addressed now what a caricature is, I'd like to take a little time to talk about one thing that a caricature isn't. And I want to talk about this because I think it's perhaps the greatest misconception that people have in their mind about the art of caricature. Now, first, let me tell you that there are certain things that caricaturists who work at parties, festivals, theme parks, anywhere out in public hear over and over all the time. I hate to burst any bubbles, but I need you to understand that if there's some funny comment that you called out when you were passing by a caricaturist who was working in a public place, I would just about guarantee you that you were not the first person to think of that. We've all heard it many times before. She doesn't have a mustache. Yeah, we've all heard that one so many times. But for now, it's not the jokes that I want to talk about. It's something else that all caricaturists hear, or at least all caricaturists who draw with any level of exaggeration, every time they set up and start working, which is comments like, "Ooh, that's harsh," or "That's so mean," or "How could you do that to that person?" Or in the popular parlance of today, "You did them dirty." So tired of that phrase. The implication of comments like these is that the exaggerations that the caricaturist has used in drawing their subject are hurtful or insensitive, and that the subject will likely be or should be insulted by it. Well, what if I told you that an exaggerated caricature is not an insult? That might go against your perception of caricatures or contradict what you've always assumed to be the case, but the fact is that an exaggerated caricature, even one with extreme exaggerations, is not in itself inherently insulting to the subject. A caricature is not an insult. Now, before I go into explaining that, let me clarify that I'm not saying that a caricature can't be insulting, or that that's never the intention of the caricature artist. I'm sure that there are some who are purposely drawing their caricatures in a way that they hope will be perceived as harsh or stinging. I expect that would especially be the case with political cartoonists. Their whole job is to satirize the people that they're drawing, make them look foolish or objectionable in some way. What I'm saying is that the art of caricature isn't inherently insulting. The act of drawing someone with their defining features exaggerated is not in itself an attack on that person. Let me share with you one example. A little bit of background. Every year, there's an online challenge that caricaturists from around the world participate in called Caricature Resolution. How it works is at the start of the year, a prompt list is published of names of 31 famous people. And the challenge is for artists participating to draw a caricature every day for the month of January. For one caricature resolution, one of the names on the prompt list was Alejandra Ocasio-Cortez. Now, typically, I personally don't tend to caricature a lot of politicians, primarily because they're probably already the most widely caricatured public figures in the world. So I tend to lose interest. I don't really know what I could bring to the table that hasn't already been done. But for the sake of taking part in caricature resolution, I drew this caricature of Alejandra Ocasio-Cortez. At that time, I was a regular Twitter user, and I posted my AOC caricature drawing there, as well as my other social media outlets. And it was interesting to me that most of the reactions to it, especially on Twitter, fell into two categories. One, people who commended me on it because they hated Cortez for her political stances and saw my caricature as supporting their hatred of her. And category two, people who were angry at me for it because they loved Cortez and thought that I was joining the voices of those who derided her political leanings. Now, I'm not going to get into political discussion here. I don't consider myself informed enough to get into the inevitable debates that would open up. And furthermore, I don't think that an art-centered YouTube channel is the place for it. But in as much as it applies to this topic, I will say that I actually quite admire Alejandra Ocasio-Cortez's outspoken nature and her obvious commitment to doing what she believes is right. My caricature of her had nothing whatsoever to do with my feelings on her political agenda or on her personally. Look again at the drawing and tell me, where in this did people see me mocking Alejandra Ocasio-Cortez's politics? I did nothing here that I would say could be rationally interpreted as a commentary on her personality, her views, the way she presents herself. All I was saying with this caricature, if I was saying anything at all, was that AOC has big eyes, sharp cheekbones, and big teeth. I was exaggerating her facial features. That's it. Same as I do when caricaturing anyone else, regardless of how I may feel about them. Okay, so if you accept that I wasn't insulting Cortez on any personal level, we still have to address the question, is it insulting to exaggerate a person's abnormally large eyes, sharp cheekbones, and big teeth, or any other facial feature that makes them look specifically like them? I still maintain that no, there is nothing inherently insulting in drawing a person's face that way. See, when learning to draw straight portraits, artists are typically taught that there are standard proportions that the human face is structured with. Start with an oval shape. Eyes sit at the halfway point between the top of the head and the bottom of the chin. The distance between the eyes is equal to the length of one of them. The outside edges of the nose line up with the inner edges of the eyes. The bottom of the nose is roughly halfway between the eye line and the chin, and the bottom of the mouth sits halfway between those. The ears line up with the tops of the eyes and the bottoms of the nose, etc. Now, these are all averages, generalizations. To create portraits that actually look like specific subjects, a portrait artist needs to recognize that when we apply those guidelines to actual human faces, they very rarely all hold true. If they did, every face would look the same. So the portrait artist has to identify where the person's facial features vary from that established norm and draw the features accordingly. The caricaturist needs to make those same observations, then push them further. Are this person's eyes further apart than average? Well, then I'm going to draw them extra far apart. Is the mouth lower on the face than the halfway point between the nose and the chin? Well, then I'm going to draw it way lower. And so on. The differences between people's faces are simply facts. They're a necessary part of the human experience, if you will. Because, as I said, without them, we would all look alike. And how would we be able to tell each other apart? So why do we consider an acknowledgement of those defining features insulting? Now, I have enough to say about just that one point alone that I'm going to leave it there for now and explore it further in a future video. Look forward to that one, hopefully coming soon. For the purposes of this video, let me just say that I maintain that pointing out the things that make one human's face unique from the faces of other humans in an exaggerated way for humor and entertainment should not be viewed as an affront against that person. It's more of a celebration of the fact that we're all unique. Now, I acknowledge that there is some gray area here. I mean, if a caricaturist knows that the person they're drawing is sensitive about a certain feature and exaggerates it anyway, is that insulting? Maybe, arguably. It's a valid point for discussion at least, but keep in mind that in the majority of cases, the vast majority of cases, when a caricaturist is drawing in a public place, the person sitting for them is a complete stranger to them. And furthermore, in most cases, that person knows what they're getting themselves into when they sit down, when they enlist a caricaturist's services. Most people know that caricatures are meant to exaggerate, and usually there are samples of the caricaturist's work around so they can see what they should expect to be done. If that person is game for it, then why should anything the caricaturist exaggerates on that person's face be viewed as an insult? They're in on it. They're complicit. And further to that point, here's something for you to consider. If I'm drawing a caricature of someone, keep in mind, as I say, I don't know this person. I've never seen them before. They've just come to my retail stand, looked at the samples that I have on display, and decided that they want to have this done themselves. Now, I observe that they have, let's just say, as an example, an abnormally long chin. Tell me what's more of an insult? For me to draw that chin extra long, or for me to assume with no prior knowledge of this person that their long chin is something that they're sensitive about, and say, you know what, I'll do you a little favor. I'll de-emphasize that feature. You probably hate that thing about yourself, so I'll just tone it down so that you can feel better about yourself. That is an insult. I suspect where it all comes from is that people think that when a caricaturist draws somebody with their facial features stretched, that it's our way of saying, you're ugly, or you're funny looking, or something personally offensive like that. And this suspicion is supported by the number of times, and it has been a lot of times, that people have said to me things like, oh, that person is so good looking, you're going to have a hard time caricaturing them. See, they believe that being attractive automatically makes a face hard to exaggerate, which is not true. And more to my point, making our subject feel ugly is not the idea at all. You need to recognize that we're drawing all people with their proportions all out of whack, regardless of how attractive they may be. I mean, look at this caricature that I drew of Angelina Jolie a couple of years ago. I certainly didn't hold back on the exaggerations on her. And let me tell you, if Angelina isn't too attractive to be exaggerated, no one is. You hear me? No one. Thanks for listening. I hope that this has been enlightening. Feel free to drop a comment down below agreeing, or if you must, disagreeing with my point that caricatures are not inherently insulting. I just ask that you keep the comments civil and respectful. And if you have any other caricature related topics that you'd like for me to address, feel free to make a suggestion in the comments as well. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more, and share it around with others who you think might find this topic of interest. I'd greatly appreciate that. I'm Don, this is Caricatures by Don, and I still haven't thought of a good catchphrase to sign off my videos with yet. See you next time.